I select VM. I select any VM. Every VM actually, if you see the VM overview, there is something called activity logs. It actually will give you the logs which has been created for that VM. Similarly, if I just look for a storage account, load balancer, any resource which you have deployed so far, the activity which you don't do onto that particular resource, they are the logs which has been stored as activity logs. So Microsoft maintain activity log for all the resources. Microsoft gives you a centralized service called monitoring, and Microsoft gives you advisors. Advisors are actually, they keep on checking your resources specific logs, resources specific metrics, and they will give you a centralized what advisory for every resource, that whether the resource, if the resource is underperforming, why it is underperforming, and what kind of measure has to be taken by you in order to, it will not take the measure automatically, it will only give you a recommendation. It is you have to actually apply the that recommendation. So you have to decide whether you want to apply that recommendation offered by Microsoft or not by the advisory. Okay. So what all resources been, take an example, you got hundreds and hundreds of VM, similarly, 50 to 100 of storage account, multiple web apps, multiple load balancer running for different clients. And now you wanted to find it out that, okay, if something goes wrong, I should continuously keep on monitoring every individual resource which are critical to a specific client. And as soon as that resource actually start underperforming, I should actually be having a mechanism of automatic alert raising, alert notification. So Microsoft also gives you one more thing called alert notification services. So that comes, that falls under core monitoring part. So we'll see that shared capability of alert services. We also got something called this log analytics. I told you, that monitoring collect the metric data and will push it to the centralized log. We also got a network monitoring. The centralized network monitoring is actually been available as a service called Network Watcher. We'll see it soon. But right now, let's talk about the VM level monitoring. I hope by now the log analytic workspace have been deployed. If I just go to refresh, I got a log analytic workspace. By default, this workspace is going to actually hold the logs here. And those logs, which will be coming here, okay, I can query onto that. But I can only query if the logs exist. So I have to wait for the logs to get generated and get pushed here. So what I have to do is, once I create a log analytic workspace, which is my log analytic workspace, this is the one, it is ready. So now I need to direct all the VM specific metrics data to be directed to that particular workspace. So to do this, I'll first do what I wanted, to push or uh, enable this monitoring capability onto individual VM. So I'll just go to 4 VMs which is not being monitored, and I'll just click on to enable. This option comes here, enable. If I click on to enable, it says VM is not connected to any workspace where it can, where monitoring service can push the metrics data. So which particular analytic workspace you have to use? Don't select the newly created. You don't want to create a new one because you already have a workspace created as my log analytic workspace. I'll just put it there. Enable data collection. Once I enable the data collection for this particular VM, which is my VM1, then I go back to the virtual machine again. Let me see it. While it is happening, I'll just go to VM2 and I again click on to enable. And I again select the same analytic workspace and say enable. Once that deployment will be in progress, the submission of deployment will happen. So it is in progress right now. Now I'll close it. I'll just go to third VM, which is VM2 restore. Again, I enable here. and I want to keep the log somewhere into again the same centralized workspace. That's what I want to do. So now I'll do it for the RG2 also. RG2 has got VM3. I'll also enable the logs. So I can also, please understand, using script also I can enable all the, I need not to go to individual VM and do this one by one, or going to the monitoring service and doing it one by one. I can do it one by one also. Monitoring team does it. But sometimes, like, if you've got hundreds of VM to be monitored, or you want to enable the monitoring for hundreds of VM which have been provisioned, so that step may be lengthier. So I, using the script also, I can enable monitoring, and I wanted to instruct via script that the monitoring metrics which is being collected for all those 100 VMs to be directed to a centralized single workspace using PowerShell. So this way, what will happen sooner, you'll see, like, that these VMs which will be actually coming as not monitored will fall under a status as monitored. So while we actually have put 4 other VMs, okay, to be enabled for monitoring, and those monitoring what assignment onto the workspace has been taking place, I'll go back to the storage account. Here, storage need not to be, because storage is actually a managed service of Microsoft. Unlike VM is you can manage. Here we got, like, storage which has been given as 1, 2, 3, 4 storage which has been given, and we actually get a kind of information about that storage which is also being monitored. You know, so the storage specific, that means IO specific information is being monitored for the storage account by default. So we need not to do anything here. What we have to do is for VM. So while the VM is getting metrics has been getting collected to the centralized workspace, I can actually go to the individual VM. Just see it carefully. This is the last step, because in this case, I need to get one infrastructure service. Let's say VM. I'll go to VM. Under VM, I can select the activity log, and I want, like, that all the activity logs of all the resources should be placed into a centralized log workspace. So here I go to activity log onto one of the VM, click onto the logs, and then click on to add. When I click on to add, I'm actually associating right now here. Okay, there's a log analytic workspace here. So I'm associating this. Just see, I did it for VM1. Can you see here? There's the VM1. I wanted to direct the logs, activity logs of the VM1 also should be going to get transferred to the log analytic workspace. But once it has been done for the VM1, it will be done for all the VMs. You need not to worry about it, unless you want to change it for specific VM. So this is what, the Microsoft saves our time, that I need not to go to all the VMs one by one to actually associate the VM specific activity logs to be directed to a particular single workspace. So as the name says, log analytic workspace, it's a workspace which will be holding the log for analysis purpose, you know, and also understand, to actually work on this particular log analytic workspace, you have to learn a language which is called Custo. Custo is a language which has been there, which has been used by log analytic workspace. It's a service for sorting and running interactive analytic over the big data. So this particular language will be used for writing the query onto your workspace, and I will show it to you. So you have to go through with that language. Meanwhile, let me show you here. Everything has been deployed yet. And if I just go to refresh here, or maybe, yeah, once I refresh it here, you can see something called Azure activity. Azure activity, that means this particular VM specific activity logs have been directed to my log analytic workspace. Now I did it for VM1. Let me just go to virtual machine, click onto virtual machine 2, and see where the activity logs are. If I click onto logs here, you can see this also been directed to the same workspace. unless I change it. I can push the log of this particular VM to be pushed to some other log analytic workspace. I can do that by adding it. But by default, it has been for VM2, where the logs, activity logs are going again into the same workspace. What about VM4 or VM3 rather? So you can see like that I did it only for once and it happened for everyone by default. This is for convenient purpose. Microsoft has done it. Unless you wanted to, specify that for specific type of logs of specific VM, I need to direct it to a specific workspace. Now, even if you look for storage account and click onto the storage and select the activity logs here and look for logs here, you can see like that logs of that also been getting directed to the same workspace. I only created one workspace, guys, and you can look also. I've got only one workspace here created as my log analytic workspace. Now, this workspace will be going to get the data collected for all the VMs metrics, the storage metrics, the storage activity log, and the VM activity log. So please understand what happens is your monitoring data would be metrics or could be logs. Metrics are numerical values which describe some aspect of your system, which could be bytes per second read, byte per second write, memory per second, committed, memory committed and memory release, CPU committed, CPU release. Similarly, logs. Logs contain different type of data organized into a different set of properties for each type. So they can be Windows telemetry events, okay, which will be stored as a logs. So if you collect both logs and metrics corresponding to any resource of Azure into a central location, the way we are doing it, so that central location will be known as log analytic workspace. And to actually query onto that log analytic workspace data, the data will be actually humongous data, and that data will be a unstructured data, but will be useful for query purpose. And that query language which we'll be using will be known as I told you, the language is Kutsu. Kutsu, sorry, tongue twisting. So I'm just waiting for, I think it has been done. Let me just show it to you here. If I just go to monitoring service and look for VM and just see those VM which were actually under unmonitored, non-monitored, they've been coming as 4 monitored. All VMs have been monitored. What is the reason of monitoring the infrastructure? I can put a alert. Okay. How? That's what I wanted to show you in this practical. The alert which I wanted to put here is that I only configured 4 VMs right now. Some VM is critical. Let's say VM1 or VM2 is critical. Consider VM1 is critical. And let me go to VM1. VM1. Take an RDP of the VM1. I wanted to run that some heavy load onto the VM1. That's why I'm going to the VM1. The first thing which I will do would be I will actually disable the eye enhanced security so that browsing can be enabled. And I wanted that continuously browsing should be enabled onto the VM so that I can see some data has been actually transferred here and there in the VM. And I know that VM recurring costs will be fluctuating based upon how much data I'm sending out of the VM to the rest of the world. Data out is always chargeable. So I want to put a control onto it. I want to put an alert onto it. So to do this, what I'll do is I'll first open Internet Explorer, and quickly I will add, I will download Chrome. Let me install, come on. Oh, what? Come on. Am I doing correct, wrong or correct? Uh, uh, uh. They keep on changing. So we're going to install Chrome. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because in server side Internet Explorer, we cannot browse YouTube. If I'll try doing it into YouTube here, I hope you've been aware of, anybody who's a server admin knows that in the server browser, if you try to do a YouTube browse, you'll get into an issue. I hope you're understanding my point. So even if you try downloading any of the video, let's say if I select trending video, this one, it says playback is not supported on this device because server side IE does not support YouTube browsing, because server side IE does not support WebM plugin, or it doesn't support HTML5. So if I just go to YouTube in the Chrome, I actually can select a particular, even though it will be running slow, I don't know for what reason, but because of that, the VM doesn't have the integration tool installed. So that's why it may be running slow, but the best part of it is it's running continuously. And on top of that, what I'll do is I will actually put some more load onto the VM. So I'll do it that later. So what I did was I actually been connected to a VM1 and installed IE onto that. Sorry, install Chrome onto that, and I'm actually going to put some more load onto that. And I want that particular load should be raising some alert. To raise an alert, this is a VM1. I go back to the monitoring service. There's an option available called alert. You can go to individual VM also to create an alert, but I would say that rather than doing onto individual alert for individual resources, you can manage the alert mechanism here also. So you can click onto alert and you can go to create a new alert. It says for which resource you want to place an alert. So you have to select the resource type as virtual machine. So let's see virtual machine, where it is. Virtual machine. You have to be a bit slow, or I'll type virtual machine. So don't select virtual machine classic, just select virtual machine. And then you select VM1. Let's say I'm putting the alert onto that. And the condition is what condition? Now the condition could be if the network in, that means if the network is coming too much inside the VM. If the network in, that's a condition which I want to apply. And the condition is if greater than, total is how many bytes? 5 bytes, 5,000 bytes, it's KB. 50 bytes, 500 bytes, 500 KB, sorry, 5 MB. let's say I'm taking it as 5 MB. So I'm considering that, that if the total network in billable in is greater than total 5 MB, and that 5 MB should be calculated, you know, in an aggregated calculation period of 5 minutes. So every 1 minute, it will check the last 5 minute threshold value. That last 5 minute calculation of bytes should not go more than 5 MB. If it is going more than 5 MB, then what I should do? I should create an action. To create an action, I need to create an action group. So first I'll create an action group, and I will give here action group name. It could be my action group, and the shortcut name my action group, and the resource group maybe RG1. And here you can actually, now this action could be anything. Action could be, this action can be, some action you want to take onto the resource. If the resource is, raising some alert, those action can be, running some serverless job, and that serverless job will actually, remove that particular, issue, or resolve that particular issue. Or maybe you wanted to raise an, IT ticket, using any ITSM tool. Or maybe you wanted to run some sort of background logic app based application, which is a workflow application. Or maybe you wanted to actually raise some web request, which is actually taking care of what is happening in the VM and can control it by itself. But, for all these things, you need to take the help of a developer. The only thing what we can do is you can actually put email, SMS, or push notification. So I will just choose here the action name is email and SMS action. So you have to write an email. So the email should be given to amit.sharma.dev at, or maybe mcp@outlook.com, or SMS. I can push the message and put my phone number. If I have an, if an organization has got their own Android or iOS application, they can enable the push notification onto device also, or for their application. But I don't have it. This voice, what do you call, notification will only work for US. Okay, so if you have US phone number, you'll get the voice mail. So I don't have a US number. I'll only show you email and SMS, and just say okay, and create. This will create an action group. So this action group may be comprising of multiple action, but I took one action, which is emailing the user, as well as SMSing the user who's concerned, user who can take some preventive measure by manually intervening. And then I add, I think it is already added. Sorry, here, this is the one. And now what I need to do is I need to create the rule. I'll say rule is VM1 network in going beyond limit alert. And here I say VM1 network in threshold is reaching beyond 5 MB mark as defined by alert rule. You can write anything, please take necessary action or appropriate action, whatever. And I just say create a rule. So this rule will be created, guys. Now this rule will be evaluated every 5 minutes. every 1 minute, the last 5 minute rule will be validated. So let's wait for the rule to be created. And if I just refresh here, this is pathetic. Let me do a one more browser level refresh. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on. Okay, it will not show it to you here. It will show you manage alert tool here. So you'll be able to see the rules. Come on, yeah. I just created, no? This is nonsense. Yeah. VM1, oh, sorry, in going. I type a mistake. So my point is, what will happen? Now, if I just go to my VM, not this one, and if I just say here, Manman Studio. I'll try downloading that studio just to ensure, like, that some network data will be pushed in. You can see 539 MB of data has been getting downloaded. Okay. Let me also try downloading something. Maybe. I think more than enough. SQL Server Express download. So I have to carry out some activity so that I should be able to see the alert raised or not. So just give me a second. I will go to download SQL Server Express. Click on to SQL Server Express, run the tool to check whether the installation can happen. That download will happen. Oh, it's very fast. Yeah. And while it is happening, let me show it to you. If I go back to my browser and if I hit here outlook.com and you can see here, guys, that one mail has been coming as a, oh, this is a delete one. This one. You have been added to Azure Monitor Action Group. That was the action group called My Action Group I created. And then I got a severity level. Severity level was that VM1 alert was triggered. Can you see here? The VM1 threshold is reaching beyond. Oh, I think I did a too much blunder in terms of spelling mistake. So VM1 network is, VM1 network in threshold is reaching beyond the limit. So that conclude. Oh, is it a React site? Oh, React with Redux. Okay, I never knew it. Okay, so I got to know something great. Okay, so by my point is, like, that you get to know that there is an action group, and this action group has been raised. And let me show it to you and the rules. If you can go to monitor alerts, and you can look for a refresh here, you'll be able to see that there is a severity level 3 which has come here. And if you click onto this severity level 3, it shows you what is the alert which has been raised. Let me show it to you. Come on, come on, come on. It should show you here. Oh, it is showing it, no? This is the one. I don't know why it is not showing it to you here. Something is wrong. Let's wait for the refresh. My point is like, that is showing you the severity level 3. And if you look for the severity level 3, it should come ideally here. I don't know why it has not been showing it to you. It should come here, which indicate like, that, the alert has been raised. And I can show it to you like, that mail has also been showing it to me. And if I can show you to my mobile, I got the notification to my mobile also. But since I've shown it to over my mail, so I think that will suffice enough. So what we have done out here in this particular lab is we've been to monitoring service. We actually been to all the VMs and we enable monitoring for all the VMs. So earlier all the VMs are not being monitored, but we monitored it. We ensured like, not only VM metrics like CPU and everything. Just see now. If you click onto VM1, you can see here that VM1 performance is also been shown, like, that how VM is connected, what is the performance data it has been collecting, and it is showing you the performance metrics in terms of CPU, network, memory, the C drive, D drive, CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk, CPU, IOPS utilization. All those things have been shown to you. And you can see here these lines which have been showing you, like, that C and D drive for this particular VM. If I click onto monitoring uh, and just go to only overview part of monitoring to see the overall monitoring part here, I can create a dashboard as well. So let me show it to you somewhere here. So I can have a generic dashboard. I can create my own dashboard. So I can create a dashboard. I want to create a dashboard for all the resources, like one of the resources VM1. I select, and for VM1 I wanted to actually get the CPU information, CPU consumed, or maybe I wanted to get something called network in total. That information you can see at the right hand side. Just because of that point in time onward, like now we started getting the data collected. I hope you can see it here. 9:32, because I created a VM that time only, and the monitoring also enabled that time. So you can see, like, that we can create your own chart. But if you don't create the chart, you have an option also by seeing somewhere here, going to the virtual machine, selecting individual virtual machine, and looking for individual virtual machine performance data in terms of CPU, in terms of memory, in terms of IO. It is actually showing you everything. And because I selected one of the alert mechanism in the monitor, I enabled one of the alert rule, and that alert has been raised here. So one rule and one alert so far has been raised. As in that my if I keep on doing all heavy activity onto my VM here, and try downloading everything further, and it will start collecting more data from internet. So network N is happening more than 5 MB, for the last successive 5 minutes. So the alert will again be triggered, and I will again be getting an email to my Outlook account. So that's how it will happen. How does alert clear? Do you have manually acknowledge, or threshold is cleared, it removes from the active alert by default? No. You actually, a very good question. When you are looking for alert, the problem is I cannot show you the alert right now. I don't know what is the reason. It actually should show you the alert here. I don't know why it is not showing you. That's actually a problematic thing. So let me show it to you. It usually shows you, like, all the alerts here only. For VM1, if I just select, and there's only one VM1 alert, but it is not coming here. I don't know for what reason it is not coming here. only for VM I can actually say for the resource group as RG1. Yeah, I have to acknowledge the alert because once I'll see the alert here, no, it's not coming. I don't know why. Even I tried refreshing multiple times. Even though if you look for monitor alert here, you get one alert. Can you see here? If I click onto this alert also, it should show me the body of it. I don't know why it is not showing me. So I should be able to get the alert for the VM1. Then I have to explicitly acknowledge it. So you can see the alert state could be new alert, acknowledge state, or close. So you have to manually close it. It will not automatically close it. The alert will be open unless you acknowledge it or close it. So the problem is like that right now it is not showing. Normally it shows you here, and otherwise you can search it by. I don't know why it is not showing. This is too bad. It should show me the alert. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. You can check here. This alert has been fired here. But if I click onto this, Kevin, onto this alert, okay, I have to change the alert state explicitly. Do you understand my point? Either acknowledge and close. So I have to do it manually. So you cannot do it automatically. Okay, either via script or via coming to the portal explicitly. I have to acknowledge the alert state. That's what I know. I don't know if you know something extra on top of that. But once you actually make the alert close, the alert will get clear. So I was actually trying to show it, but during that time it was not showing for some reason or other. Again, it is not showing. It is actually sometimes it is behaving pathetic. The UI is not refreshing the way we want it to refresh. So sometimes it happens. I can't help it. Maybe actually they are actually transitioning from the alert version 1 window to alert version 2. This is actually the one. Maybe this may be the reason. Something is wrong right now. Okay. And one more thing, why it checks every minute for past. If it is, sorry, because if it is not started in the last check, so yeah, it is something called
Are you,
a sliding check. Amrendra. Amrendra,
okay, so basically it is checking for every minute. The
it is
intention is
checking
to check
every
every
minute
minute.
for last 5 minute threshold data.
Okay, but the
Right.
first four again, it never alerted, right? Last check, it checked for
Yeah,
5 minutes.
correct.
Anyways, understood.
Correct. Okay. Thanks for understanding, Amrendra. So that's how the alert notification works, guys. Okay. So my point is that monitoring service actually will giving you two things. You have to follow the pseudo step. One, go to monitoring services. You know, look for what all VMs you have. Enable monitoring on to all those VMs. Go to individual a single VM. You know, prior going to a VM, you have to actually prior enabling the monitoring. You actually have to first create one analytic workspace. So we created a log analytic workspace. This is the workspace, and you can see now in the monitoring service, if I go to VM, you can actually look for all the VMs are been collected here to the workspace is this. Any given point in time, I can change that logs of one particular or metrics of one particular set of VMs should be kept into a different workspace than the other. Same thing applies for activity log. So once you actually centralize the activity log as well as the monitoring metrics, to a to a centralized monitoring workspace or analytic workspace, what you can do is you can actually enable the what alert mechanism. On top of that, you also get something called advisor. So this advisor is basically, here we got advisor recommendation here. So against your infrastructure, it will actually give you like that what all kind of recommendations have been offered by Microsoft Azure for your resources which have been deployed. This only will be enabled, guys, uh, once you actually enable the monitoring for all the resources, and you'll be collecting the metrics. So just see here, I got one alert which has been raised as per right now, which is actually of a low impact, which says that get notified when the Azure services issue affects. In fact, click onto this particular notification. It says, or this particular what do you call alert. So it says create an Azure service health alert. So you actually have to create a health alert also for the service. So you can create the health alert for specific type of service. Maybe I can actually select for all the services. You know, uh, this is very important. Like that. Take an example that being a subscription owner, you become a tenant to Azure, and Azure will be offering different type of services. So if any particular service actually get degraded behind the scene by Microsoft, you should be actually getting some alert raised. So just see, unlike other alert rule, here we have not been given the option to select the what do you call condition. We have been given only the option to select the, that means any the service. Take an example. The service could be API management, service could be data explorer, service could be, and now you have to actually look for, which services from Azure you are picking up. You are not supposed to get the alert raised for every type of services which has been, getting upgraded, downgraded by Azure anywhere. So if the service has not been behaving the way you wanted to behave by uh, within Azure, so you want the recommendation to be given, or advisory should give you an alert. But you have to actually choose, like, no, that just see that how many services have been there. Virtual desktop, Windows 10 IoT core service. Are you using it? VPN gateway. Yes, you can use VPN gateway. Are you using network watcher? Are you using Power BI? So you have to look for, like, that not all the services has to be selected. You have to select which all services you want, to be informed against your subscription. Okay, and that too, not for all services you wanted to get recommended. Otherwise, like, that if you are not utilizing your resources under a region called South India, and if the South India data center get degraded for some or other reason temporarily, you'll be started getting the alert, and you'll get bugged as an administrator that why the hell I'm getting the notification for South India which I've got nothing to do with. I'm not deploying any resource on top of it, because you did the wrong thing. You selected all regions. You have to look for all those regions which are concerned for you, because those regions where you deployed your resources. Select the kind of services which you are using in that region. Select the region, and then select the type of event. Event could be if those services will be having some issue, service issue, or Microsoft at the back is doing some planned maintenance for those services. Maybe the service could be VM, and Microsoft doing something called hypervisor maintenance at the back, or maybe like some health advisory or security advisory recommendation has come from Microsoft. You will be getting a notification. So in that case, you should get notified over the mail. So you can create an action group. I hope you've been aware of what is action group. You can create an action group. I already created an action group. So I can select that action group, that particular mail should be given to here. Which particular service for? I can select for all service. Which particular region for? I can select all region. However, this is not a good practice, guys. I know, that my resources have been deployed under East US and under South Central US. Why should I go beyond that particular region? But when I know, that my resource has been deployed here, and in this case also, why do I need to actually take all the resources? In fact, I will look for, okay, the resources which I've deployed here is in context to virtual network, in context to VM, virtual machine, in context to storage, And in context to recovery service fault, that's also site recovery. In context to, that's all. For all these 4 type of services under this region, if something happens, I should be raised an alert. So, and I can say here I can define like now that uh, service related issue in one of the Azure region. You can define like whatever message you want to define, up to you. I'll just define the same here, and I put the save the alert to this group, and I say create a rule. This is a recommendation which has been given by advisory, monitoring advisory. So once I create that, and now if I just hit on to refresh, you can see that that advisory may give you a different recommendation than one. So this is the recommendation which I've created. I've actually solved it. So this recommendation has been resolved. I've done it. So I can say dismiss here. So I have to explicitly say dismiss, guys. If I've done that, take care of it. And then I got something called MFA should be enabled for the account with the owner permission on your subscription. So I hope you've been remembering that yesterday when we had Azure Active Directory, I had users. So users has user 1, user 2, user 3, all these users. So if I enable 1, 2, 3 for this, for the matter, I go here and go to multi-factor authentication, and I just enable, just for the time being, I'm just enabling like no MFA for them, not for this guy, not for admin. I think it is enabled here for, and for this guy it is not enabled. So I'll just do it as enable this, and on premises is actually not required to be enabled. Uh, that's an unattended account, so I need not to do it. Sorry. So for user 1, user 2, user 3, I've done it. Now if I just go to monitoring service and look for the recommendation. So I keep on actually looking for the recommendation which has been given by Microsoft, and then you can actually look for like that what has been solved, what has not been solved. If you solved it, you just select the solve the recommendation which has been done, what all threats may come, what is the repercussion, and how do you actually take a remedy. So those things have been told to you, and then once you have done with that step, you can say yes, this recommendation was useful, and then what you can do is you can actually submit it. So this will be actually security center recommendation, Microsoft sector. So my point is like advisory is a very good mechanism which has been given, so which actually act as an individual consultant for your subscription, uh, which will keep on giving you advisory in context to availability, in context to security, in context to performance, in context to cost also. If your resource has been sitting idle for a long and you're not been utilizing it, and Microsoft seeing like that allocation cost has been incurred, and you're not utilizing that particular resource on and off. So Microsoft will give you like that some resource been sitting stale, not been utilized, and you're unnecessarily paying the cost for them. So what do you want to do? Now Microsoft will not actually take care of I mean they will not apply those remedy by themselves. They will only give you a recommendation. So I told you like that you can use activity log to send the data to the log analytics, and you have been given a query language which can actually be used for querying to that log data. So log could be application log, could be diagnostic log. Diagnostic log will be guest OS log. I hope you remember like the time of creating a VM. If I just go to the VM, and if I select any of the VM, at the time of creating a VM, we actually get something called, do you want to enable the diagnostic log or not? So there is an option called diagnostic setting here. So you can actually keep the log somewhere in a central location. So you can create an account or maybe one storage account. So you can enable the guest level monitoring. So in this case, what will happen? You'll get OS logs also. Not only CPU, memory, network, and disk logs, but you'll also get underlying OS level logs. So that is called guest OS logging. Apart from these logs, you get other logs also, which is guest level metrics and logs. So they are additional level of logs, which will be underlying OS logs, which you'll be getting. So you can enable those guest level logging for every type of VM. And then once you enable those logging, you can actually redirect those log to a centralized log workspace, as I told you. And here we have already done that. So let me show it to you. I'm not very good with that language called Kutso, but I again got something called VM3 network going beyond limit. Again, I got an alert. So okay, so I wanted to tell you one more thing in context to logging is if I go to monitor, here we got you can actually look for service health. You can look for what all services we've been using here. This is actually not very good. I don't like it because it's not good because I'm using three services. Take an example of it. I'm using East US, South Central US, and West US. West US where I'm using, I hope you've been remember that I created one of the storage account which is using GRS and RAGRS. So that's why West US has been used as actually a replica copy of my storage. So three services been used from three different regions. So you can actually get a plan maintenance based notification from Microsoft, health advisory from those services from Microsoft. All these things you can actually see it from here, services help. And you can also get it from the alert. As I told you, that Microsoft gave me a recommendation to create an alert, and we created one of the alerts, which was the advisory alert. So we created two alerts. If I click onto the two alert, one of the alert was again it is not showing here. Yeah. So one alert was what we created for VM1, and one alert was for service alert. I hope you remember. So that will show to you. I can't. Maybe I can show you the manage alert rule at least to show the rules, if not the alert. So you got service related issue, one alert which I created this one, and the second one was this one. Two rules I've created. So my point is that I can see alert specific to the services raised by a recommender, and I created that alert. Second, I can actually get the metrics. Now, please understand the logs which I'll be getting is actually been placed here in the centralized log. This particular monitoring service now is actually been connected to, right now it is actually showing me the query of VM1. Let me actually go and select the virtual machine here. Uh, VM1, or maybe I select the scope and I'll select the VM whose log to be selected. I think I should go only for VM1 because I want to see it. And now here, this is very difficult language. So please be careful at the time of using it. We have been given something called online course for this language called, as I said, that is a language we make use of something called Custo. So this language is not so easy, but at the same point, it's not so difficult also. Of course, the syntax is quite different than a normal SQL commands and all those stuff. So anybody who's been good in writing the Kutso language query can write it. So if you're not good as a beginner, what you can do is you have been given something called here example queries. Come on. Mm, no, where it is. it should give you language. No, not this one. It actually gives you. Come on, there it is. It gives you some inbuilt queries. I think it is not shown here. Or maybe not. Let's see if I select the virtual machine heartbeat, and if I select heartbeat for the computer name. So I have to write it here. It's very difficult to actually write it. So let me just check. I want to check heartbeat where uh, there's actually they don't give you a template now or what. Just give me a second. They keep changing no every now and then. The UI also, that's a problem thing. Mhm. Okay, okay. There's a particular language called Kutso which we have to use, and for that you actually have to look for this documentation. Because that is beyond the scope. I thought of showing it to you, but you have to look for that this language which is being giving you here. That how can we write a query? So it's just telling you something. Example is event, and if you want to see all the event of a particular machine, so if you just write here something here, let's say I just select heartbeat and say run. If I've got the data, so I'll get the heartbeat here. You can check here. This is the heartbeat of that particular virtual machine called VM1 because I selected the scope as VM1 here. So it is just giving me the heartbeat when it was checked heartbeat. So, so these are the heartbeat based events which has been happened. Similarly, I can actually choose something called some inside data, performance data of the VM. You know, you have to actually choose VM process or you know, uh, uh, let's say if I choose something called, this is not good. This is VM computer, VM bound port, syslog, auto syslog. If I just look for event only, so let me just remove this query and just write here event. So I'll see all the event corresponding to VM1 because the scope is VM1. So if I get some data, so it will show me. It says right now zero record match because I've not enabled the guest OS diagnostic logs. If I enable the guest diagnostic log, I would have been able to get the OS level logs, OS level events also. But I was able to check one thing called heartbeat, which I checked it as I said, that I can go to heartbeat in place of event because Microsoft will be actually as a back will be checking the heartbeat of every resource which has been deployed. So this is not a OS diagnostic log; it's a infrastructure log. So activity log. So if I just run this, I get the logs configured. So it's a very typical language to learn. There's a different scope altogether, and people those who are only creating the OS diagnostic log and those who've been working majorly on the event viewer, application log, event logs, and they know as to how to make a query onto those logs by getting that too much data coming from the event viewer, performance viewer, and they know as to how to query onto that particular data. That particular data will be queried nowadays with the language called Kutso. If a person has been good with writing the Kutso language, they can actually use the log analytic to analyze the data specific to a particular resource and analyze what has happened to that resource. So my point is, as an admin activity, we have to take care of only two things: push the logs push the metrics towards centralized log analytic workspace toward, for a resource as VM, or a resource as storage, or a resource as a Kubernetes cluster, or container, Azure Container Service, or network, and you can push all those logs and you can actually analyze those logs. So yes, there is one more topic which has been left in this context, is actually, talking about alert has been done. We actually go through with that alert. I told you as to how to create alert and alert rules, and log analytics also have been discussed. Yes, one topic which has been left out here is called network watchers. So that will be talking about in the last day. So here, network watcher, two more modules, and one topic which has been site recovery service, Azure site recovery. I will show you all those things. But I would say, like, rather you should go for Azure site recovery by yourself, because there's a lab given to that, because that lab is actually almost 1 hour. So spending 1 hour onto that lab unnecessarily, if you understood the concept, you can follow that lab and you can go through with what I discuss about this ASR, or Azure site recovery. So that we can focus upon only that lab. I ask you to do it by yourself if you can do it, other I have to do it. But if you do it, then we'll be able to focus on the rest of the topic which will be left out for the last day. So with that thought, I think there's a time to wind up the session, because a lot of people have been having some other assignment. Sorry, Amrinder, to keep you on hold for long. So we can wind up for this day, and we'll meet tomorrow, or I would say day after. But my point is that was about monitoring, and one topic which has been left in context to data replication was I told you how to work with the backup and restore, whether it is on premises or Azure to Azure backup or restore. But we didn't ASR, we didn't do ASR. But I will show it to you, last day. Yeah, Mr. Bhagan. So I got that mail from you. That's what I was discussing when you were, I think, not around. So we'll be taking the training somewhere the day after tomorrow. That's what your mail indicates. Okay. So thank you, gentlemen, for the day, and we'll meet tomorrow. It's too late, and I'm actually feeling hungry. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you. Thanks, Saf. Thank you, Mr. Bhagan. Thanks, Amarendra.